Hello, everybody. Welcome into Valley News Now. We're here on Facebook Live on the desk in the VNL studios. And a little bit of an interesting look for all of our Minnesota people and people on the other side of the border who might be looking to go in for some state fair action. The severe weather that we've been covering that's been affecting all parts of the country, really hitting the cities hard and prompting some alterations to the schedule of the Minnesota State Fair. So, with the latest information on that, we're bringing in our bureau reporter, Quinn Gorham. Quinn, normally doing fantastic political coverage, especially with Governor Tim Walz being thrust into the national spotlight. But he does have the latest information going on about the state fair. So, welcoming Quinn onto the program. Quinn, how you doing?
Doing all right. I mean, good to be on the broadcast with you guys talking about something other than politics. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but the Minnesota State Fair is one of the best parts of the year, so happy to talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, give us a little bit of a rundown to just kick things off. We know that they were initially just trying to delay a little bit of the programming on Monday before canceling everything entirely last night, some of the grandstand
Yeah.
acts and stuff like that. And then the opening was pushed back this morning. So just give me a general overview. What was the damage and what were the organizers' thought processes behind canceling and delaying? Was it all about safety? Was it all about cleanup? What sort of obstacles were they facing in getting things back up and running again?
Yeah, we heard from State Fair spokespeople earlier about how uh, this is the first time in, quote, recent memory that the State Fair is open late. So they got a 9 a.m. start this morning. That was to make sure that all the debris was cleared out, all the, I guess, vendors and rides and whatnot were safe for people to get in there at the State Fair. So that 9 a.m. opening kind of allowed them to clean up all the debris from last night. That storm that went through did some damage. There were a couple of buildings that sustained some damage. The Minnesota Historical Society building was forced to close their doors for the day. They're still doing walking tours, based on my understanding. But they had to close down because I believe a tree fell on their building. I talked to another vendor earlier, Island Noodles, who got some damage from debris hitting one of their display monitors. So there was quite a bit of damage at the state fair. The DNR booth, for instance, had a tree fall. They had to clear that out this morning, but it seems like they did a pretty good job because by the time I got there, things were cleared out pretty significantly.
And just tell us a little bit about what your experience was like. You live in this area, and I know that you encountered a little bit of these storm dangers as you were just kind of going about your life. So, what is it like for the
Yeah.
average Twin Cities resident having to navigate this kind of extreme weather at this point in time?
Well, I can tell you firsthand that it was a doozy of a storm. I'm no meteorologist, so I'm not going to give you, on the point numbers and statistics, but I was on my way to a fantasy football draft on last night, and I drove right through that storm. It was one of the worst things I've driven through. So, uh, pretty nasty. That wind was really coming at the car, shook my car a little bit. The rain was coming down. It was something else to drive through. So I can only imagine what the folks at the state fair last night were feeling and going through as they were kind of taking shelter in these various buildings.
Now, we know that you, as you just said, are no meteorologist, so I'm not going to hold you to any specific weather predictions or anything. But they're obviously hoping, organizing wise, that there are not going to be any recurrences of this going forward, hoping for smooth sailing. But is there any overarching concern that there is a chance that the storms could reemerge and cause more delays of this nature?
It sounds like they're feeling pretty good about things going forward as the fair kind of moves into the back half of its time here in St. Paul. So I would say no, they're not really worried about sustained issues, sustained damage. Like I said, the vendors that I spoke with today were able to get things back up and running as the day started. So really no sustained damage even today, let alone as we go into the weekend here.
And with that being said, you've got some more extensive coverage coming up that's going to be airing in our 6 o'clock broadcast tonight. So, without
Yeah.
giving too much away, we want to serve as a little bit of a tease here to keep the viewers coming back and watching all of your great stuff. Just tell me a little bit about what you expect to touch on in that, if you have any specific interviews or sound bites that are going to be particularly illuminating, and why people should swing back around in our later broadcast to catch what you have to say.
Yeah, I talked with some of those vendors that were impacted in the storm, just kind of about how their mornings went. I asked them the stories that they heard about the people that were there last night, because a lot of them kind of work a certain shift. So the day shift doesn't really bleed into the night shift too much. But the stories were there, and they had some stories to tell. So I talked with them just generally about how they're feeling going into today and going into tomorrow, and what that's all going to look like. But yeah, it should be a pretty good story. Make sure to tune in.
All right. Well, that basically does it. As a little bit of a wrap up, we're saying that yes, it was a scary kind of moment and a little bit of an intimidating night for people, vendors, organizers, and a little bit of extra legwork to do this morning in order to get everything back up and running. But should be business as usual from here on out. Is that what we're looking at?
That sounds about right. I mean, head on down to the Minnesota State Fair, because I was there this morning and it was just as fun as it always is. So
And you remember off the top of your head when that runs until? I believe it's the second. Is that correct?
Labor Day. Labor
Labor
Day
Day.
is the last day.
Okay. Well, still plenty of time if you are in the North Dakota area and you want to make that nice little 3-hour trek on into the cities, or if you're in any other part of our viewing range that has that immediate access, definitely something to check out. But Quinn, thank you so much for giving us the extra time from your busy reporting schedule to tell us a little bit how things are out there. And just in case you have any further fantasy football drafts to hit up, stay safe.
Pleasure as always.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us here on Valley News Now. Thanks so much for tuning in. And like Quinn said, swing back by at 6 o'clock because we have much more extensive coverage of the situation, as well as our First Alert Storm team keeping an eye on everything that might be developing, the actual meteorologists, if you will. But we really appreciate you tuning into this Facebook live stream. Everybody, have a great rest of your day.